Happy Friday, everybody. It is mic'd up. I'm your host, Michael Schneider, and happy holidays to everybody. I hope everyone's Christmas was fantastic. Obviously, we got New Year's coming up. Lots of great sports going on. This episode is basically just kind of, obviously a sign of life for one, letting everybody know that I still care about the show. But again, what I'll say for the 400th time is that I'm sorry for, kind of being gone for a while. The month of December has been very, overloading, I'd say, for the most part. But I have been using a lot of my free time to kind of put into this show. I actually do want to use this episode to talk about a lot of plans that I think I got going forward into 2026. Lots of very exciting stuff that I think will kind of increase, the brand of the show. A lot of it really just comes down to me and my graphic designing ability and how I can use Adobe Photoshop because, it's a maze. But despite that, got lots of sports going on and coming up. 2026 is going to be a year for lots of different things. Sports is going to be one of them. Obviously, we have the Olympics, the Winter Olympics. Looking more into that, I know that there's a lot of interesting sports that I am going to be, kind of keeping track of. I do plan to talk about the Olympics quite a bit, obviously due to the fact that, NFL is ending soon. Well, seemingly soon. I think February around the 2nd or the 3rd, beginning of February is when the NFL will end. College football ends within the next few weeks. But it has come a long way from where we started. 2025 has been great for the show. I think that all these what I've done and what we've done in 2025 has been just kind of like a trial for what is to come in 2026. Obviously, there's a lot of important things that are missing from the show to make it, kind of truly what I want it to be. But despite that, I'm all set for it. Been spending a lot of time, building, kind of a game plan, how I'm going to run the show. In 2026, we are definitely I'm going to be slowly transitioning over to a live stream of episodes, kind of typically, noon to maybe an hour, 45 minutes a day, just talking about sports, either early morning or, noon, midday, maybe 1 to 2, 2 to 3. That's typically kind of like my idea to go for the shows. It's kind of just, a glimpse at what we got going on in the future. I've also been working on actually designing a website, for the show. Also paired with like a newsletter. Obviously, I want to put some news out there, kind of inform the world. Obviously, my sources are going to be coming from a lot of people that some of those that watch the show may know of. If you're already tapped in with the sports world, Pete Thamel, Adam Schefter, Jordan Schultz, in that ordeal. But despite that, I want it to come from my show first. Obviously, I have a lot of sources on Twitter too for a lot of college recruiting. There's been a ton of I've been getting blown up ever since I've kind of enhanced Twitter in my experience. 24/7 Sports has been keeping me in the loop with all the coaching stuff going on. All these assistant coaches and whatnot, and all the transfer portal. A lot of Group of 5 guys moving around. But despite that, so getting a website up and pairing with this website, maybe potentially sometime in 2026, hopefully sooner than later, is putting merchandise out there, getting merchandise sales, getting getting out there so that people can rep the brand. People can, I'm thinking about starting off small, just, maybe stickers. People will slap them on, whatever they got, Xboxes, they got a tackle box, they got, anything you can slap it on. So that's kind of the ordeal we got going on over here. I say we, but it's really just me. But despite that, it really just comes down to, another major point of kind of getting my social media pages back on track, or on track in general. I haven't really been posting too much, but despite that, it's just trial and error with this. It's not a very good show right now, obviously. A very, very lackluster show, but hoping to learn what I used in 2025 and what I put out in 2025 to kind of move forward into 2026 and enhance the show. But despite that, I'm going to stop being a salesman for the show and kind of, talking about that because I know that there's been a lot of empty promises almost with what I've been putting out. But besides all of that, let's get into the real topic at hand with the show, and it's been basically sports for the past few months. Lots of crazy things that have been happening, especially with the NFL, college football. I don't know if it would be too outdated to talk about Notre Dame, going to rant about Notre Dame and what they've been doing despite not making the playoffs. But I think that our main focal point is just going to be the postseason. NFL postseason, obviously, we're getting down to the wire here. Chiefs are eliminated. I know that the Bills, Jaguars, and Chargers clinch playoff spots. A lot of other teams are fighting for spots. I believe the Broncos do have a clinched spot in the playoffs. But the Broncos, they have the record. Obviously, the Patriots, too. Yeah. We can talk about the Patriots as well. But I think, in a sense, the Patriots and the Broncos aren't two entirely different teams. Obviously, the Broncos have a more dominant defense than the Patriots. And honestly, the Patriots have, I'd say, a better offense for the most part. But, it's just two teams that have the records. But the records don't exactly show how good exactly they are. The Patriots, they've been on a winning streak for quite some time. I believe they got broken by the Bills, if I'm not mistaken. But they've been beating a lot of, all right teams, lower tier teams by a few scores, or not a few scores, by maybe one or a few, or a couple. Obviously, highlighting one game, the Falcons game, not a very good team. I remember watching that game. That game was, honestly, Falcons should have realistically won that game, but with a lot of the games that the Falcons have played this year, it's really woulda, coulda, shoulda. Minus the Seahawks, minus the Dolphins, probably minus the Rams here on Monday Night Football coming up this week. That's going to be quite the lackluster performance, I can tell, by the Falcons. Or they'll just come out with their throwbacks and shock the entire world. Who knows? But, it's been rough for the Falcons. It's been rough sledding, but I do expect and hope that the Jaguars, kind of a team that I've been focusing on a little bit more since the Falcons have kind of gone on their downslope, to kind of make a push towards the playoffs, towards the Super Bowl. So I think that they can make a real run for their money here. In the NFC, however, I haven't heard too much about who really has kind of clinched their actual spot. I know that there's a fight for the number 1 seed right now. I know there hasn't been too much talk about the number 1 seed in the AFC because it's kind of just been, I believe the Broncos or the Patriots, teams that have been gravitating around this conversation, this bubble of the number 1 seeds in the AFC. AFC is not really that much comp compared to the NFC, obviously, as it has been displayed. Going on, obviously, you have divisions like the NFC West, which all 3 teams in the top of that, minus the Cardinals, could make the playoffs. And then obviously we've got the NFC South, very lackluster division. Their top team is 8-7 right now, and they're projected to win the playoffs. If the Panthers win the playoffs, then I don't even know what to think. Wow, I did not expect any of that. Nobody expected any of that, really, especially from Bryce Young, all those guys. Bryce Young's definitely been on the incline. Obviously, he's been clearly showing great promise with Rico Dowdle and Territorial McMillan. I believe that's how you say his name. But, so the postseason's heating up. A lot of, Chiefs are out. Chiefs are not in the playoffs. I know that we had a bunch of games going on yesterday. Cowboys were dismantling the Commanders for a little bit, and then they kind of came back. It was a close game. Obviously, the Cowboys inched out. I know Vikings and the Lions yesterday, a very rough game played by Jared Goff. I know he had a decent sum of turnovers. The Lions are also eliminated from the playoffs. Dan Campbell, they're eliminated from the playoffs. Them and the Chiefs are two notable teams that will not be playing this postseason in the NFL. And then we finished off, obviously, with the Chiefs playing with their third-string quarterback against Bo Nix and the Broncos. And despite that, the Broncos only won by 7. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. The Chiefs, with a very undeserving team this year, only loses to the Broncos, one of the top teams in the AFC, by 7 points. So that's what I'm talking about with teams like the Broncos and the Patriots. Obviously, when it comes to the postseason, it really just comes down to who plays better when it comes down to the game, or when it comes down to the wire here. And being able to win these close games is a good trait to have, but you don't need the trait when you're playing a 3-win team, a 4-win team, 5-win, 6, up to 8 wins maybe potentially, or 9. But 9-team teams may make the playoffs come late December, early January. But despite that, NFL, we do have some buzz actually. Talking about the Chiefs, talking about them missing the playoffs, they're actually projected to be sent to the actual state of Kansas in 2031. So they'll be leaving Arrowhead Stadium. I know a lot of fans are very, very angry about that. They are currently located in Missouri, right on the border, right next to Kansas City. But they're across the river in Missouri. Excuse me. Obviously, more buzz with that. The Chicago Bears are a lot of people are talking about them potentially moving to Indiana. So they'll be the Indiana Bears. Obviously, I remember seeing something about the commute from downtown Chicago to Soldier Field. I believe it was longer from downtown Chicago than it was to where they're trying to move them in Indiana, which is Gary, Indiana, if I'm not mistaken. So that's very interesting. Obviously, that would be a huge loss for the state of Illinois, losing a team like the Chicago Bears. And would you even, obviously Kansas City, the Chiefs are a different, kind of a different ballpark when we talk about the name of the team. But if you're moving your team to Gary, Indiana, and you're typically gravitated around the city of Chicago, that'll pose to be some issues with branding. And I know branding is a huge thing in the NFL, especially for these very long-lasting, predominant teams. A team like the Bears that have been in the league for, I'd say since the dawn of time, since the dawn of the NFL, obviously before it was what it is today, obviously with the AFL, NFL, whatnot. But despite that, NFL, we're getting down to the wire here. College football, though, we're already here in the postseason. We've already had some postseason play. I know last weekend we had, I want to say, honestly, hot take, but it was a very lackluster weekend in terms of games, despite the Friday night game in Norman, Oklahoma, with the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Oklahoma Sooners. I know a lot of people were saying the Tide don't belong in, but obviously they show that they're a playoff team. They're a playoff caliber team. Kalen DeBoer, he wins his first playoff game for the Tide. But yeah, Brent Venables. I remember seeing Brent Venables at the end of that game. Obviously, some questionable officiating in the coaching staff there. I know that they were down 10 with about 2 minutes to go. Decided to go for another field goal. They had missed a field goal prior to that. They happened to get the ball back from Ty Simpson in the Tide, and they went for another field goal. So you go for another field goal with 2 minutes left, and you don't have to get a touchdown. You need a touchdown to tie the game. You go for a touchdown, which will guarantee you that you'll be within striking range to, put the game on ice or to take the game just in general. And Brent Venables is like, okay, we're going to trust our kicker that's already missed, 2 field goals, I believe, prior to that. So obviously it doesn't pay off. Kicker misses his second or third kick, second or third field goal. I believe it was back-to-back, yeah. But obviously, another story is the fact that they were up 17-0 in that first half and just completely shit it out the drain. So obviously, hearts are a little heavy in Norman, Oklahoma. A lot of people were saying that would be their first, because I don't believe they've had a playoff win yet in the college football playoff era. I know that they've played Georgia. They played LSU in that iconic 2019 season, but I don't remember a time where they actually won a playoff game. So they're still searching. Obviously, I believe Brent Venables is a great coach, and I like what he's done in Norman, but I mean, in a game like that, I believe you just have to, it's just the game plan was not working there. So the Tide move on. They will play the Indiana Hoosiers in the Rose Bowl in the quarterfinal. Yeah, in the quarterfinal. And obviously, that was, like I've said, the only game. We moved right into Saturday the 20th. Yeah. We moved right into Saturday the 20th. Started off the day with what was supposed to be, by numbers and on paper, the most entertaining game of the weekend, and of the day, essentially. Obviously, the Aggies of Texas A&M, Marcel Reed, they're coming off that horrible loss that kicked them out of the college. They're the SEC championship game against Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorns against Carson Beck, the Miami Hurricanes that have been struggling this season. Obviously, the controversial option to put them into the playoffs over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and let's just say it was a good game. I'm not the only one that was very vulgarly disappointed in the performance by both teams there in Kyle Field in College Station. It ended up being 10-3 final score. First half was, I believe, the first half was scoreless, 0-0 going into halftime. There had been, exchanging missed field goals, and going into halftime 0-0. Aggies come out Miami comes out of the second half, ends up getting a field goal. I believe Texas A&M struck right back, and then Malachi Toney and the Hurricanes, along with Carson Beck, they strike right back with a touchdown, putting the game up 10-3. And then Marcel Reed. This is where Marcel Reed really does it. I'm not gonna run his name through the dirt because I love Marcel Reed as a guy. Obviously, I remember watching him last year against the LSU Tigers. I believe that was in Death Valley as well. No, that was Kyle Field. Blackout game for the Aggies against LSU, against Brian Kelly. He played his heart out, played a great game, and I knew from there that he would be a special guy. He just had to activate that passing side of himself, and he's done that all season. Obviously, he's had his rough patches. South Carolina was able to pull that out. Was a little shaky against Texas. Obviously, did not result in W there. But it really went off the rails here in Kyle Field last Saturday. They were mounting for a game-tying touchdown, which would send the game into overtime, which everyone was dreading because it would already been a horrible game. There's really no way, unless you go into like 400 overtimes, that this game would possibly be saved. And Marcel Reed in the red zone, I want to say, throws an interception, seals the game. The Miami Hurricanes are moving on to play the Ohio State Buckeyes. That one will be in the Cotton Bowl in Arlington, Texas, against Ryan Day, Julian Sane, down there in Columbus, Ohio. So they had the bye, despite losing the Big Ten championship game. So that's kind of what we got going on there. Then obviously the 3:30 slate was the Tulane and Ole Miss game, which not really much to talk about that game. Trinidad Chambliss popped off as he should. Pete Golding is 1-0 as a college football playoff coach. And so the Ole Miss Rebels move on in a stunning performance, or in a great performance. Obviously, John Summerall's last game before he takes the job in Gainesville for the Gators. And so, yeah. So the Ole Miss Rebels will play the Georgia Bulldogs on New Year's Day in New Orleans. And quite the game we got going on there. That's the Sugar Bowl, if I haven't said it already. And then finally, end of the day, the game that everyone coming into this game, watching football all day was just end the suffering, please. I think more people were probably watching NFL than college football at this point. JMU, Oregon. And surprisingly, obviously it was a blowout, but surprisingly towards the end of the game, or just kind of somewhat through the middle of the game towards the end, JMU was able to stay within a reasonable margin despite getting the absolute shite rocked out of them by Dante Moore and the Caucasian Collision Unit in Autzen Stadium in Eugene, Oregon. Obviously, not very much of a competition, but Oregon did put up a good fight towards the end. Ended up only being about I want to say a 28-point differential. JMU put up 20, 30 points. So for a team that everybody was expecting to just get put down like a sick dog, they did get put down, but it could have been a lot worse. And obviously, you could say that for really any game like JMU, or you could say that for Ole Miss and Tulane, but for JMU, I mean, they played an alright game. Obviously for what had been expected for them. So Oregon moves on. They play Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl, which is in Miami. So that's basically our quarterfinal overview. We have obviously the Ducks going to the Red Raiders, and the Ducks and the Texas Tech Red Raiders fighting off in the Orange Bowl. And then we have on the same side of the bracket as that, we have Indiana, Alabama. Those winners will go to play in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta a week from New Year's, and a week before the College Football National Championship game in Miami. And then obviously the other side of the bracket, Georgia and Ole Miss in New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl. And then we have the Ohio State Buckeyes, Miami Hurricanes in the Cotton Bowl in Arlington, Texas. Whoever wins that game will play the winner of Georgia Ole Miss in the Verbo Fiesta Bowl in Phoenix, Arizona. Technically Glendale / Chandler, if I'm not mistaken. That's where State Farm Stadium is located in Arizona. And then we're just going to go from there. So college football, we're kind of getting towards the end of it. And like I said earlier, I'm going to talk about this for a little second. But Notre Dame obviously being left out of the playoffs was, an atrocity. I did at first, out of anger, say it was on par with what FSU had endured in 2023, but it's not exactly the same scenario. Obviously, everybody has a right, and the College Football Playoff Committee has a right for keeping them out. They don't play anybody. They're not in a conference. That was kind of what I heard from everybody, but, a lot of people were saying, okay, well, let's not punish Alabama for going to their conference game. Let's not punish them. Obviously, nobody was talking about Ohio State and Indiana, whatever happened in that game, because it was a close game. Obviously, Ohio State being the number one seed seemingly all season. It was all season. And so what I really like the parallel here, Alabama did not move at all. They didn't budge. If I'm not mistaken, they didn't budge at all in the final playoff rankings. Notre Dame, obviously, they were 10, got bumped out. Miami came in, said, fuck you, Notre Dame, fuck you, Marcus Freeman. We're gonna play for a spot in the national championship game. We're gonna play for a quarterfinal. We're gonna play in the quarterfinal. So they get jumped. A lot of Alabama fans are happy. Georgia fans are pissed off because, okay, so Alabama has a chance to, see us again. Not that we're 100% scared, but, in the same scenario as a Georgia fan, I'm looking at it like this, kind of paired with my anger just for the team, not in general, or just in general. So let me get this straight. We're going to not punish Alabama for playing in a conference game we're just due to the fact that they're in the SEC. Say we had a Big 12 team. Obviously, we did have a Big 12 team contend for a spot. BYU. Obviously, that's a different scenario because BYU, I mean, they really only lost one game in blowout fashion to Texas Tech. Same thing happened in championship weekend. And BYU really hasn't been making any strides quality-wise to get into the playoffs. Okay. But when we talk about Group of Four bias, or not Group of Four, Power Four bias, this was probably the most disgusting act of it all. And I keep saying it, but I'm not elaborating on it, about not punishing Alabama for playing in a conference game. But it's not the fact that they played in the conference game and lost it that they should get left out. It's the fact that they played in the conference game in one of the biggest conferences with probably the best variation of teams this season, and they got fucking embarrassed. So they come into Atlanta. Kalen DeBoer, Ty Simpson, not Jam Miller, I don't believe. Jam Miller was injured that whole game. Ryan Williams and that whole team. Obviously, we're gonna talk shit about Bama just due to the fact that I fucking hate Bama. So here's what I'm gonna say. This is atrocious. Alabama, see, if they lost by maybe like 10 points at tops, I would be like, okay, they deserve to be in the playoffs. No. Not only did they lose by 10 points, they didn't lose by 10 points. They lost by 21 points. They got utterly embarrassed in the conference championship game. And a lot of people, I know that the playoff committee, I remember seeing this, they are still using the fact that Alabama beat Georgia earlier on this season as a quality win. And at the time it was. But when you come into your conference championship game, which is huge, you're playing for a spot to have a bye, and you just get absolutely manhandled, embarrassed. I mean, fucking backhanded by Georgia, the team that you beat by 3 measly points, by not 3 points, 3 scores. Obviously, there's a different tone. There's a different tone to whether they can compete. Obviously, what I'm saying now might be voided out because of what they did to Oklahoma. But, I mean, beating Oklahoma, I'd say offensively, in an offensive somewhat shootout, is not really much of a feat. Oklahoma has had one of, I know statistics might say it another way, but I know Oklahoma, from what I've seen this season, has had one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in college football. Obviously, we have Georgia, we have Ohio State, and we can even talk about Texas A&M in some parts. But Oklahoma has had one of the best defenses in the SEC, probably the best defense in the SEC, one of the best defenses in college football, yet their offense is just a complete pile of horseshit. I mean, it's just like it's a very bad offense. So I'm not going to discredit the fact that they won a playoff game. Kalen Bower won his first playoff game. He won his first playoff game. I'm not going to discredit that. I'm not going to take that away from them because, obviously they deserve it. But when they go when they travel to Pasadena, California, within the next few days or so, I believe, and they have to face off against another really subtle but strong defense in Ohio or in Indiana's with the Heisman winning quarterback, we're going to see a different story. Don't be shocked when Alabama is sent home crying in the Rose Bowl yet again. Obviously, we can go back to their previous Rose Bowl games. Obviously, Michigan, that whole scenario, losing to J.J. McCarthy. That's just an embarrassing feat for your entire organization, your entire school in its history. Let's go back to Notre Dame. So make the playoffs. Obviously, a lot of people were feeling for you. I felt for them. I felt bad. But there's only so much you can do. The playoff committee has so much power, and the SEC has so much power, being, one of the predominant conferences in, the conference of all 164 college football playoff teams. So, yeah, that's not what I'm worried about. Marcus Freeman, I don't know if it was 100% his decision. I know it was a kind of unanimous team decision, but they decided to back out of their bowl game, which they would have gotten the best bowl game outside of the college football playoff, which would have been the Pop-Tart Bowl, which is now BYU and Georgia Tech. Want to know why? You probably know why. They backed out. So I'm really understanding. I'm really now feeling not for the team, but as for a player like Jeremiah Love, which I know damn well, especially with his story, in being a Heisman finalist, I don't think he was okay with that. There's no way that Jeremiah Love was okay with that. So now he gets to miss out of, his final game for his soon-to-be alma mater, whatnot. And you just completely back out of a bowl game. There hasn't even been talks about you making a potential conference push. But there has been talk about you renewing your rivalry with USC. Okay, Marcus Freeman. Okay, whoever Notre Dame's AD is over there in South Bend. I see you have bigger fish to fry than a measly little rivalry, which, okay, it's got some significant history, But, I mean, what's a rivalry if that's going to be pretty much your Super Bowl? Because if you keep doing what you're doing, you keep crying, complaining, I'd say, essentially getting on bad terms with this college football playoff committee, you're not going to make it in next year's unless you, don't lose to Texas A&M, teams like Texas A&M. You don't lose to teams like Miami, both playoff teams, by the way, in the playoffs. And that's another thing. We can talk about, them barely losing to both of those teams. They lost to Texas A&M on like a single possession. And it was a single possession in Miami too against the Hurricanes at the beginning of the season. But that's another thing, that a lot of people were really hating on them for that. They've won 10 games despite that. But if you really want to go back that far and talk about, so here's your quality losses, because quality losses, oh my gosh, wow, that has really become a thing in college football. And I think it's very disgusting. Obviously nobody's really talking about. At some points, quality losses are becoming more of a focal point than quality wins. And that was kind of the situation for Notre Dame. It was really hard for, someone like me to kind of form a entirely sympathetic point of view for the Fighting Irish. But, realistically, they didn't do anything wrong. So, Alabama loses the conference championship game by a lot. We're not going to punish Alabama for losing by a lot in the conference championship game. But we're going to punish a team that's not even in a conference. So that kind of makes sense. Obviously, the prime solution is to join a conference. But if you're going to talk about early season losses, such as Texas A&M, such as Miami beating Notre Dame by, a possession or two, showing that they can be a playoff caliber team, obviously two teams that just actually clashed in the playoffs. Only the team that won by a score. But if we're gonna date that way back to week 1, let's take a trip down memory lane. All right, Alabama fans, remember week 1 when Tommy Castellanos and Deuce Robinson and Mekhi Danzy, when that whole team with Mike Norvell before they fell off horrendously, when they bent you guys over and they grabbed a belt. No, they didn't grab a belt. They grabbed a paddle, like what they would use in the old times, the boomer times. And they grabbed this paddle with nails, barbed wire, and they went viciously to town on your beautiful ass cheeks. Your beautiful Alabama cousin fucking ass cheeks. So yeah, nobody mentioned that. Nobody batted an eye towards that, but we're going to bat an eye towards a team losing by a possession to, two playoff teams. But we're not going to say, Alabama got fucking backhanded by a team that's now not even bowl eligible, 5-7. Obviously, no hate to Florida State anymore, at least. But when we're talking about stuff from the playoffs, we can talk about Florida State another day. But that's kind of my rant. Obviously, college football is becoming such a interesting sport. And I could talk about that too. The word deal and the word contract being thrown around. No, not for coaches, for players. And a lot of these, recruiting reports that I see, especially with transfer portals and whatnot, is really, really alarming. And I know people like Todd Gurley are beyond pissed about this. So college football is going, I'm not going to say a good direction. It's going in a direction, okay? So, yeah, that's kind of what we got going on college football. But I do know next year we have lots of things to discuss, lots of interesting. We're going to find out a lot about this sport in late winter, early spring. Obviously, there's still the NBA. Going to have to talk about the basketball sport, which is going to be interesting. I'm not too fond of the sport, but I've gotten into it a little more recently. Obviously, we have the Olympics, then we have the World Cup. The World Cup is coming in spring, if I'm not mistaken. It might be coming in spring. Who knows? Look more to that. But I'm also looking forward to that, obviously, with, the X Games. Or not the X Games. Did I say the X Games? The Winter Olympics. Which actually will have motocross, I believe, and all that. Well, no, it won't. It won't have that. It'll have snowboarding, obviously. The winter sports. I don't know if we have a summer Olympics. That'll probably be more, tailored towards, motocross, all that, Red Bull flipping over football stadiums and whatnot with a bike. But despite that, we got lots of figuring out to do within spring, within late winter. But summer's but opening day for the MLB is going to be here before we know it, and that's going to be our focal point. Maybe even get into some UFL talk. I know football will still be around for a little bit due to that. But despite that, that's everything I got today. Lots of interesting things to come. When it's going to come, don't have a time date or timestamp on that yet. But I will let everybody know as soon as possible. But despite that, I hope everyone has a great Friday. Merry late Christmas, merry belated Christmas, as some may say. I hope everyone has a great New Year. But like I said, time and time again, it won't change. As my closing statement, God bless everyone that's tuned in throughout the year. And we got lots of things going on 2026. Hope everyone has a great day. For the fourth time or second time, or how many times I've said it, multiple times. Chase your dreams. Don't let anybody tell you what to do, because they don't know you. They don't know your limits, and they never will. So, hope everyone has a great rest of their 2025, great 2026, and go Dogs. Sick 'em.